Good evening. Finally, it is, what day is this? Tuesday, December 2nd, 2014. This is the Refinery. We are the place where grassroots organizations come together to explore the best ways to make conservative messaging work so that we can reach and influence ever more people. Just FYI, you can always watch us live every 8:30-ish Central Time on therefineryshow.com. That page also has some links for you to listen or download the podcast at Vigilant Liberty Radio. You can watch the YouTube clips that JD and Felicia put together every week. You can see all of our other previous episodes, and if you want to chat with us live during the show, you can do that at therefineryshow.com. And with that, we've got me and Ryan from the Conservative Union, JD and Felicia from Free Radical Network, and Cori and Andy from the Party of Choice. First thing we wanted to talk about today was sort of a new project, Unsurance. And you can tell us your Unsurance stories using the Contact Us link at therefineryshow.com. But Ryan had the story that he told us last week about his Obamacare pricing changes now that his insurance policy had to be canceled because it didn't meet the Obamacare regulations, meaning that people who don't know him and don't know his family say that he had substandard insurance before. So his insurance company had to cancel that policy and get him a new one that provides all the things that Obamacare says you need. And it's working out not all that well for him, and he's far from the only person, but he recorded a nice video telling the story about that, and I think JD's going to mute us and play that video for us here so then we can talk about it. So JD, take it away.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and this is my insurance story. My wife and I have 2 children, one of whom was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. The private insurance that we have had until the end of this year, when it will be canceled by Obamacare, has had a premium of $553.80 per month. It had a $1,000 deductible and a 20% copay until it reached the maximum out-of-pocket of $3,000 per year per person. We've had great hospitals, great doctors, and our son's care has been in the best hands. Recently, I learned that we can't keep the plan that we've had for years because it doesn't meet all of the added Obamacare regulations. I emailed my insurance agent to ask what options we have going forward. She emailed me a list of 15 plans, the cheapest of which has a premium of $519 a month. Right now, I bet you're thinking to yourself, that sounds pretty nice, that's cheaper than what you had. But here's the important part. It has an $11,000 deductible. That's a total of $17,000 before we can even use the insurance. We can't afford to pay that much each year. My work is also being forced to offer insurance. The monthly premium for me on the work plan is estimated to be less than 9% of my annual income. So, because of this, I won't qualify for any subsidies on the Obamacare exchanges to supplement my high deductible plan. When you add my wife and 2 kids to that plan, however, the premium will be over $800 per month. There's no way that I'll be able to afford that high deductible plan. There's also no way that I'll be able to pay $800 a month in premiums. So unfortunately, the healthcare plan that I'm left with is the ones the Democrats claimed Republicans wanted all along. Don't get sick, and if you do, die quickly. We liked our plan. We couldn't keep it. We liked our doctor. Hopefully we'll be able to keep that, but at this point I don't know. The Democrats lied to us, and because they lied, we are now uninsured.
That's pretty amazing. Ryan, could you, not everybody really understands exactly what, how the monthly fee and the co-insurance or the copay pays for doctor's offices with your maximum out of pocket and the deductibles and how all of that works. So if you could outline that really quickly and then compare last year to this year and how, because those terms are unfamiliar to a lot of people. So if you could outline that really quickly, that would be really cool.
Okay, so each month for our insurance premium, we have to pay a certain amount. It is around $500 It's $553. And then when my son goes to the hospital, in addition to the insurance premiums we've been paying, we have to pay the doctor bill up until you get to his maximum of $1,000. So if his surgery is $20,000, we pay the $500 premium every month, and then we pay the $1,000, and then after the $1,000, the insurance pays for 80% of the bill. We pay for 20% of the bill.
Because that
So,
$1,000 is your out-of-pocket is your deductible.
yeah,
So it's $500 a month just to have the policy, and then you pay the first $1,000 of expenses for the year, period.
yeah,
And then after that, you only pay 20%.
yeah. After that, we pay 20% until we have paid 3,000,
Okay, and then
and
after that,
then the
okay,
insurance covers the rest.
okay. So that's $500 a month to have it, $1,000 before insurance starts paying anything, and then you have a maximum out of pocket per year of $3,000, and you're paying 20% or 80/20 or whatever it is, but a maximum of $3,000. That was your old plan.
Per
Now,
person.
yeah, now with the new
Okay.
plan, it is, according to the insurance agent, the cheapest plan is $511 a month, and then that deductible, instead of being 1,000, is now 11,000. So we have
Okay, so instead of maximum out of pocket of 3,000, you have a minimum out of pocket of 11,000.
Yes.
Okay. Before insurance even pays anything.
Yeah, and then after that, they start paying a portion. And I believe the maximum was 12,800. So we won't do the 80/20 or 70/30 part very long until that hits. But that's still 4 times more than the maximum was under the old plan.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you used to be able to budget your entire your medical expenses for the year, that it wouldn't be, after your $500 a month or 550 whatever a month deductible, that's fixed, plus 3,000 a year, and that's as bad as it could get. And now you're looking at same monthly expense, but $11,000 a year is, or $12,000 a year is as bad as it could get, and it's gonna be 11,000.
Yeah, I think when I calculated it a few days ago, the current plan that we paid out of pocket every year with the premium and then the out of pocket amount ended up being around $10,000 a year. And the new plan with the premium and then the 11,000 out of pocket will end up being around 17,000 a year. So just with those, now if I add the maximum, it's going to be closer to 18, 19,000. So we're $8,000 or $9,000 more expensive if we use the whole insurance, which with all of his surgeries, they've been expensive enough that we have had to every year so far.
And what about coverage and care for the other things that you do? I mean, do you still have the same level of medical and dental and stuff like that that you used to have? That you'll be able to see the same doctors and get the same prescription care and stuff?
I don't know that yet. We haven't applied for policies yet. She just said these are the policies that you can choose from. Let me know which ones. I'll get you applications for them. We'll see what you qualify for. And maybe it will be more expensive once they see our history. I don't know if these prices are final or if they'll go up. So we'll see what happens there.
So your best case is 6,000 more a year?
Yeah. Best case, more likely 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 more a year.
And there's some other subtleties too. If Ryan's son maxed out at 3,000, and then insurance, he spent the whole 3,000 on his expenses, and then the insurance company would pick them up. That's a point where, of course, the other members of the family would, still have to meet their cap and everything. So the original maximum would be if everyone spent all the amount that they had, everyone had that much of medical bills that they had to deal with. In this case, it doesn't matter who's sick. They still have to meet all the deductible of 11,000 before anybody gets covered.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know. since I don't have the actual policies, I don't know if the doctors are covered, and we haven't gone that in depth yet. I did email the insurance agent and just said, "Wow, everything's more expensive," and she said, "Yeah, um, everything is more expensive. Coverage is worse. You can thank the president for that." So, I mean, she knows the coverage is worse. That's what
Yeah.
she said to me. I don't know specifically how. I emailed her today actually asking why the policy was canceled, what regulations it didn't meet. And I haven't heard back yet, but I'll let you know when I do hear back.
Well, and people are really experiencing this across the board right now, especially as new rate plans and new signups are, people are getting letters like you got, Ryan, and are all having to make the same choices. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to put together the video with Ryan, is to be able to show people everybody has a personal story. And we know we haven't quite got the public moved to a place where they're ready to repeal Obamacare. There's a lot of talk, even in conservative circles in places. Avik Roy comes to mind about repairing as much as possible, and there might have to be some period in which we kind of kludge things together until we can get some political solutions to actually get rid of it and find a way to keep people from falling through the cracks therein. But the emotional stories, the gripping accounts, the people who had insurance and were fine and they were lied to and now they're made much worse off, we need to tell those stories. And I appreciate that Ryan went first, and really do encourage people to get in touch with us again if they're wanting some help telling a story like this and putting it out. If we get dozens of these out and start sharing them and using that hashtag unsured, unsurance, things like that, we might be able to get some attention of some people in Washington or some of the larger liberty organizations who I would have expected would have done something like this by now. But get some attention for this issue and get some tools and some ability, some videos to share that will help people talk about this narrative in a personal way.
Absolutely, and there's nothing more powerful than a personal message, a personal story like this, like what Ryan presented. It's really it's an important thing it's an important way to communicate with regular people, because this is something that transcends politics. If you are having some problems with your insurance because of Obamacare, with your health care because of Obamacare, I mean, that's something that people are going to be going through a lot more now, with 2015 rolling around.
And here's what I want the contrast to be. You see the ads, the healthcare.gov ads have been all over the place, again, telling people to sign up and enroll, and little old ladies talking about they got covered for $60 a month. You tell me how that person gets $60 a month? It's because now Ryan is paying a heck of a lot more for a lot less insurance, and that extra money that's going into the insurance company is not going into their pocket. It's going to cover the costs of grandma at $60 a month. And that's an ambitious thing that we should be able to do, is cover grandma. But should we put Ryan and his family and their health in peril in order to do it?
Well, I think most of us understand that the government is the least efficient provider of charity and good products and services for the entire nation that anything that was ever invented. I mean, there's nothing that government does better than the private sector, and we could have chosen with our messed up healthcare system, we could have chosen to go in the direction of greater free market, allowing for the Walmartization of health insurance. Walmart provides good products at good prices and has allowed people in the lower and medium and middle class to have things that, good quality food, easy to obtain, easy to get in their small towns, and it's provided access to the level of wealth that's really never been before seen in human history. And if Walmart had been able to provide health care as well, they would, and they would do a damn good job of it. And instead, we said, no, let's push it to the government because the government does better. And that's wrong. That was the absolute wrong direction to take our crippled and crippling healthcare system. Because yes, we all agree on both sides of the aisle. We all agree that the healthcare system was screwed up and it needed to be fixed. What Obamacare did was it took the fix in the absolute wrong direction. Single payer is not the right solution for America. At most of the nations that have single payer, they're realizing it's not the right solution for any country. It's taken England, 50, 60 years to figure that out. But if we could go more free market, then prices would drop because doctors would be competing for our services. They'd be competing for our dollars. They wouldn't, and insurance providers would be competing for our business. And we just had Dr. Shanker dial in because he's going to give us his opinion. Yay!
Hey, Ryan, how are you?
I want to step in and say one thing before we unleash the doc here. I think that one thing people can look at and understand easily when we're talking about how to communicate more free market healthcare options, people understand that selling car insurance across, anywhere across the country has made it more affordable. People can understand and relate to car insurance, and there are just as many variations.
Flo, and everybody's like, "Oh, I can get stuff from Flo, and she'll compare prices, and that's awesome! Yay!"
Right. Those are things that people have maybe overlooked in some ways about talking. But when we talk about opening up the way that people can buy insurance across state lines and allowing companies to do that, it instantly brings more competition to the market, and it instantly gives people more options, more choices. And that's something that we should be stressing, I think, in that comparison. It's a good way to make that conversation open up for some people.
But oh my God, an actual doctor was really listening to everything I said. Now he's going to tell me everything I did was wrong. Help me! Go, Doc.
Hey, so how are you guys doing? I've been listening in. I watched Ryan's video earlier today. It was moving, and and it's the kind of thing that we are seeing more and more. I think these videos are really important for people to understand the damage that Obamacare can do to many facets of healthcare. While we see these numbers, about 7 million people signed up for Obamacare and stuff, without seeing the other side, which is not portrayed, mainly because most people are not affected in that manner. Most of us are luckily healthy. We don't use our healthcare all that much, and we aren't confronted by these major healthcare bills. So you think about Ryan's situation with somebody who doesn't use healthcare, and then they're like, well, that $11,000 deductible doesn't matter to me because I don't use healthcare. So my premium is cheaper, so I saved money. They don't understand the other side of the coin, which is if you do get sick, you're back to the same place where you might as well almost not have insurance. You might as well be in a position where you end up, ending up on Medicaid or through the charitable system through hospitals and things like that. So we have this dichotomy going on where the media is portraying everything as well. 7 million people got signed up, and additional people got onto Medicaid, and we're not really seeing the other side where people are really affected by these large healthcare bills because of all this cost shifting back onto the backs of average Americans.
Hey, so on that, I have a quick question for you. Can you give the listeners an idea of what type of procedure will put you that high in medical expenses? I know my son's cleft surgeries are $20,000, $30,000 a time, I think, but I had stitches once and it was like $300. So if you break an arm, you're probably not going to be using that whole $11,000. But if you have maybe appendicitis, an appendectomy, like what kind of thing would put you over the limit, just so people know when they're looking to say, maybe I do take the cheap premium high deductible plan?
Yeah, it doesn't take much to get to that those kind of big numbers. It's hard. One thing is that very difficult, and we know this, is that it's very hard to get good cost comparisons like, oh, if I have an appendectomy in Colorado versus an appendectomy in Columbus, Ohio, I'm paying this much. But when you get a general gestalt for these things, I mean, you get your appendix taken out, you spend even 2-3 days in the hospital, you're talking, $8, $10, $12,000 billable expenses. If you're talking about a heart attack, for example. You have one angiogram, you put in a couple stents, each of those stents are, $5,000-$6,000. You're talking $25,000, $30,000. And how many of us have, family members that have heart attacks, that have stents, that have had bypasses? It doesn't take very much to get, to the point where you are threatening that higher limit of deductible. So I think, again, most of us, 80% of us don't use healthcare on a regular basis. I mean, and so when we see these premiums, we're like, oh, that's fine. But if you are a chronic illness person or you have any of these emergencies, you can easily get to these deductible limits very quickly.
And it isn't even an emergency necessarily. Pregnancy and child delivery will give you a huge bill. We joked in our family about how long it took to pay off the little critter, to where we owned her free and clear, because we had a significant amount to pay. And that was just our portion, which was maybe 30% of the hospital bill. But kids, just plain having kids is expensive. If you wanted to have, some elective surgery or some preventative surgery, that's going to land you in the higher categories and spending that much. People think, oh, well, I won't get sick, or, well, I won't get sick, or nothing devastatingly bad will happen to me. That was the original plan under insurance, is that you would take the chance that it wasn't, but you were covered in case it was. But that was also when you had more simple plans, I think, instead of these, you're going to meet this huge deductible and then maybe we'll pay some of your bills after that. It seems to me the more affordable way to do it, as it's structured for people like Ryan, is not buy insurance, sock that money away that you would have spent, and hang on to it for emergencies when you actually pay cash for your health care. And that's what Leslie was saying last week about getting to a health plan or a health delivery system that was much more free market. What's your thought on that? I'd love to hear you think address that sort of, is this going to drive us closer, do you think, to a free market healthcare system?
The more I look at this, the more I think this may end up all being a good thing, because what we're going to be confronted with is the hidden costs of government healthcare, which we've been hiding from for decades now. And what I mean by that is, and Ovik Rao, you mentioned him earlier. He talks about this all the time, where half of our healthcare system for many, many years has been socialized between Medicare and Medicaid, and we hide from that fact. Now we're going to be confronted with that fact because a lot more people are going to be shunted into these programs, because that's how Obamacare is, set up. So now these people are going to be into the system, and now we're going to have to figure out a way for paying these people. Before, we had the private healthcare system subsidizing many of these costs. Medicare and Medicaid were paying much lower rates than the insurance companies, and so the insurance companies were paying high rates, and that's how hospitals were able to stay afloat. Well, now insurers have no reason to do that. They're going to solely, as the exchanges force people to pay less and less premiums, relative to other premiums, they're going to have no reason to reimburse hospitals at a much higher rate than Medicare and Medicaid. So now the government is going to be forced to pay those same kind of rates. If you have that kind of inflation in government spending in healthcare over the next 5-10 years, you're going to see a massive explosion in government debt. And this is something that it's been a hidden cost for many years, and now it's not hidden anymore because of Obamacare. I think ultimately there's going to be two things. One is, we haven't seen the employer and individual mandate kick in yet. And when that kicks in, and if people are actually going to, I'm dubious of whether Obama will ever let the mandate.
Did we
We
lose
just
him?
lost his audio.
Oh.
That's a radiologist for you. And you know what? I don't think I introduced Dr. Shanker for our audio listeners. That's Pradheep Shanker. He's with the Conservative Union. He is a radiologist in Columbus, Ohio, or Cincinnati. It's one of those places north of here. I don't really pay that much attention. It's Ohio.
It's not
and
Texas. That's all.
It's not Texas. It's north of Texas. And also, just FYI, he is a fan of Ovik Roy, but Felicia and I have actually had our picture taken with Ovik. So
Yep.
he may
So
be a
you're-
doctor and everything, but we're still better.
Eat
So
that.
he's a fan, and you're fangirls. I get it.
Well, it was funny because he looked so confused when we went up to him and said hello and asked to take a picture with him. He's like, "What? Who are these chicks?" But when we mentioned Shanker, it was like, "Oh, okay, it's cool." He was like,
Yeah, because he knew him from Twitter. They tweet back and forth and stuff. And Pradheep Shanker gets his tweets posted to Twitchy a lot, stuff like that. So
He's
if you
also
haven't
been-
yet.
I was going to say he's also been on the afternoon show thing that Brett Baer does on FoxNews.com. So he's been featured there as well. Yeah, he's like a celebrity and stuff.
He literally hangs out. Google hangs out with Brett Baer.
Yeah, literally.
Update your 6 degrees of Brett Baer now, folks.
And if Brett Baer knows Kevin Bacon, we're all so in. We're like 1 degree closer to Kevin Bacon. And what's really cool is apparently his microphone doesn't work, so we can talk about him, and he can't defend himself now. So that's just best show ever.
There we go. He should be back now.
Oh, great. Now he just cloned himself. This whole medical thing is getting scary.
You can't have too many of me, So
You need to get that evil laugh going to get a real clone thing going, though.
yeah, my internet is a little weird tonight. Who knows what's going on? But I was in the middle.
Healthcare.gov is in your internet.
Yeah. It's Obama getting involved with internet.
Hello, NSA.
Yeah, exactly. I was ranting about private care and where we're going. I think as government healthcare takes up more of the marketplace, we're going to be forced to find new alternatives to shunting people away from Medicaid and giving them alternatives in the marketplace. Even if we have to subsidize them, this would be a better improvement over the Medicaid system that we have today, which is a complete disaster. I mean, and liberals are very much against letting poor people have choice and letting poor people make choices for themselves. I think it's going to be very interesting to see if conservatives can tap into that and show that poor people can make cost decisions as well as anybody else can in this society.
Well, we have very good proof of that already in that when we're looking at situations like the welfare cliff, where you have a level beyond which it becomes unprofitable to obtain a job, because it can't at a certain level compete with public assistance. You've seen that chart. We've all seen that chart about the welfare cliff, that once you get to a certain point, benefits just are more, you get more and you can take care of more by not having a job, the benefit. People in poverty make economic decisions that are right for themselves every day, and that is one I have always argued that has been a proper financial decision for a person in poverty to make, provided that they don't have the idea that they need to work for some self-realization reason. They make economic decisions quite skillfully every day. It's not an economic ignorance issue of general economic principles. It might be a lack of understanding of the details of this particular situation.
I think that's right. I think we've. I mean, obviously, healthcare is a very complicated thing, but at the same time, we make it out. One of the reasons why it's become overly complicated is because the government system is forced to become overly complicated. I mean, you look at the billing system. There isn't a physician in this country that can explain it to you. Talk about an absurd system where neither the provider nor the customer can explain what costs are or how the payment system works. Until we simplify that and allow people, understanding of what they're actually paying for and what they're getting for that money, we're always going to have a distorted system.
It's the question mark between get health care and profit. That's what we need to work on eliminating.
Well, and I think we could use the business model that we can look at is veterinary medical care, plastic surgery, eye laser surgery, those things where the costs keep coming down year after year. Technology is improving. The customer makes decisions, and the customer and the doctor are very close to one another. They make financial decisions and care decisions. And it's because there really isn't that not so invisible hand of the government in the middle of things. And it's not because and it's not scary, totally unregulated. Plastic surgeons are quite heavily regulated by the government, and their procedures have to be safe, and you can sue them if things go wrong. It's just that because they're voluntary decisions, the doctors have to compete for your business. So they provide more and better services every year at lower and better prices. And that's free market healthcare.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it with concierge healthcare, and you're seeing a lot of innovation now because people are forced to do it because otherwise, the way Obamacare is structured, there's no way we can afford this overburdensome system anymore. And so in that sense, I'm actually kind of optimistic. I think this is a chance for conservatives to show, look, we can develop a free market system that will give poor people, middle class, wealthy people all more choice, and at the same time, hopefully reduce costs in ways that we haven't even thought of yet, mainly because government has been restricting us from doing these things. And so I think this is a moment for conservatives to really step up and provide plans. And I think the GOP really does understand this. I think in small ways they're looking at how can we, with Obama still in power for 2 more years, how can we make small shifts in this program to slowly move us away from this disaster. They're looking at how to roll back the mandates, looking at how to roll back certain taxes. All these things, they seem small, in the short run, but long term, what we're slowly doing is pointing the whole system away from a government-centric, monopoly where Medicare and Medicaid really dictate what we do, and move it more to a personal choice issue, which is where conservatives really should be anyway.
Well, we've had a lot of conversations at my workplace because our insurance plans are being overhauled too. Not nearly as much as Ryan's, but one of the things that I've found to be really effective as far as talking about choices is, why does health insurance have to be tied to your company? Why can't you decide whatever kind of plan that you had? If you really like working with United Healthcare and that's always worked with you, but you decide to leave your company, why can't you take that with you? Just like the car insurance idea. Why do I have to have insurance that's decided for me by my company? Why can't I just go out and buy health insurance the same way I buy car insurance? I can buy what I need, I can afford for what I'm going to use. And it's been really interesting because I have coworkers from all different backgrounds, and a couple of them have shut me down, but then they've come back later and they're like, that made a lot of sense. I really think that's a good idea. And the other thing that they've all started talking about is health savings accounts. Because they're like, well, if we could have had health savings accounts back when we were in our 20s and we never used insurance, I could have $100,000 in my health insurance plan, or my health savings account now that it's been 20 years later, and then I wouldn't really need as much insurance. So it's been a really, really good conversation starter, and they're thinking about it totally differently.
And this is where I think we can use a kind of a rope-a-dope strategy. And Pradheep is right. Over the next 2 years, Obamacare is not going to get repealed, period. Obama's never going to let that happen, and he's still the president. So talking about and getting mad at GOP elected officials who don't want to insist upon repeal and yet are working towards modifying it over the next 2 years, that's really a bad strategy. We need to be modifying it over the next 2 years and making it as harmless as we possibly can. And oddly, I do think that not allowing the employer mandate, but allowing things that convince employers to not insure their employees is actually ultimately a good thing. Yes, it ultimately ends up putting everybody into Obamacare, but Obamacare is so bad, and the ability to get out of the exemptions from the fines are so easy to claim that a lot of people will, I think, very quickly realize, oh, my employer isn't providing insurance anymore. So that employer is now saving a ton of money by being able to focus on the work they do rather than health insurance for their employees. And the employee or the individual blows off Obamacare and says, well, if they want to fine me, they can fine me, but I've set up my tax structure so that I don't get a refund that they would garnish anyway, so to heck with Obamacare. I'm going to go out on this free market because there have been entrepreneurs out there creating this concierge service that originally started being something only for rich people, but now they're realizing the market is huge of it. Middle market, middle income people that can now afford concierge doctors, and then that becomes an even bigger market, and it pushes it down further and further to even low income people would then be able to afford this concierge care. And all of a sudden, even though Obamacare is still intact legally, employers aren't providing insurance, but no, we did not go single payer in America, and we went free market instead. We said, you can take your Obamacare, healthcare.gov single payer requirements. We've found a way around those fines, and we're going to Walmart Care because it's better, or Target Care and all of the clinics that are on the street. I think we can get there, or get there close enough within the next couple of years that then repealing Obamacare becomes just kind of acknowledging the fact that it's already dead.
Well, and there's a huge advantage to picking it apart piece by piece as well, just in terms of marketing our actions. When you try to take down the whole thing, keep in mind,
You hate poor people. You want poor people to die.
Well, there's that, but also it's 2,700 pages complicated, and people don't understand the pain of all of 20, 30, 40 different aspects at once. When you go target one thing, you can say, okay, right now we're targeting this one thing because of the pain it is causing these people. Look at the pain this one aspect is causing these people. And people are like, that's easy to sell. People can get their minds around that. They can get their hearts around that and say, well, yeah, something should be done about that. Oh, okay, well, you pick apart that. Now, look at the pain this is causing these people. You can't go after the pain of 30 things. You can go after the pain of each thing, and people will feel that.
That's a huge point, and that's something that a lot of us on the conservative side of things, especially, need to keep in mind, is that fact that this is exactly what the left does, is they pick a certain thing, they pick one thing, and they beat the living daylights out of it, and they make it evil, they make it toxic, and it works for them. We can do that same thing here, and there are plenty of items in Obamacare that we could rattle off here that absolutely could be singled out as a cancer, and make sure that we focus on them. I think that that's something that we could totally do.
And I think there's a way. The concern for all of us here is understanding that our own conservative allies are going to call us rhinos because we're arguing in favor of reform rather than repeal. And we're actually arguing in favor of reform now, repeal later. So we're just focusing on reform now. So we have to remember to keep to back each other's play on some of this stuff. And I think one of our arguments to try to pull the repeal only folks onto our side is to explain to them what JD just said was a pure Alinsky tactic. Pick the target, freeze it, polarize it, whatever. I don't remember all of the Alinsky stuff was, but that's a pure Alinsky target. And the conservative warriors who are repeal only will love the fact that we're using an Alinsky tactic to accomplish our goals.
You know, and one thing that you can tell them, you know, before I reel off why our way is better and they're wrong, I first want to relate to them and say, look, I understand. Well, I'm not saying that we weren't doing that. I'm just jumping back a sec. I want to look at them and say, look, I understand your concern. You're concerned that the longer we leave any of these all these other pieces in place, the more ingrained they will become in the conscience of the American people, the more they will become addicted, hooked, and we'll never get them off it. I got news for you. That hasn't been happening this time. Okay? We are now a couple years into Obamacare. The worst parts are still to come, and it has sunk even lower in the public mind. It isn't happening this time as it has with past entitlements, not in the same way. We can, and so let's take advantage of the complexity of this bill. What they've done is served us up a buffet of one by one things that we can show the heartlessness of the left. Why do it all at once? Why spoil the fun? Oh my goodness, no. I want a little of this, I want that. No, not too fast. I want to enjoy this. This is like a good Jack Nicholson movie. This has to happen piece by piece by piece. I have to enjoy this, and I want them to feel I want the left, and I'll finish with this, I want them to feel every moment of pain that I want to inflict on them with this. I used to think it all had to be gotten rid of immediately, too. I have been really, honestly stunned by how that has become not the case. Pick it apart piece by piece, and then in the end, when you flush the whole thing, it'll be triumphant.
When you're looking at the political situation, we have to acknowledge the political situation in order to get to deal with the fiscal issues and the coverage issues and the bankruptcy issues people had before other kinds of plans came in and other things were supplementing them. We have to look at that political ground, and by looking at it as though you can't catch the Republicans in that sort of strategy that you're talking about. You can't catch them trying to pull things out root and branch and everything. You can only catch them if they're smart, if we hold the coalition together over this, and if we don't end up fighting over it's not big enough of a change. You can only catch Republicans saying, we're trying to help, we're trying to fix all these problems because this bill was rushed through and it wasn't properly read. Nobody understood how it was going to work except people like Gruber who did it on purpose. Now we're trying to unpick some of the damage and take pieces of it that are flawed and perfect them and make them better and whatever. Then that's the maneuvering for 2 years plus that you do until you have gained the trust of the American people who see Republicans working on solutions over the 2 years and not being able to be charged with, trying to destroy and dismantle this great thing. The few people that still believe it's a great thing have seen the president do for people. It doesn't give the liberals that ammunition or that room to maneuver, and that's what I like about it.
In the chat, Rob brought up the idea that maybe by removing the more toxic elements that what is left behind will be harder to remove because it's less toxic. I don't think that's the case. There's going to be enough reason to repeal the rest of Obamacare because hopefully the Republicans will come up. I mean, we have a bunch of plans already, but hopefully by the time 2016 rolls around and we have a Republican president in 2017, hopefully by that point we'll have a Republican solution to healthcare, be it any of the systems that we talked about just before about enabling free market healthcare coverage, or by going into the accounts, the funds. There's going to be enough reason to repeal the rest of Obamacare once the toxic bits are removed.
I think, too, one thing to be looking out for is stories of people who have coverage now, that didn't have it before, who now have only coverage and no health care, no actual care involved. I think stories like that are going to come out. We don't know how this works for people who have coverage that isn't very good, and they go and they have some sort of event, some catastrophic or micro catastrophic, I guess, event, and then have the consequences thereafter. What happens? Is the government going to let those hospitals go unpaid or those doctors unpaid? I think we should be on the lookout for stories like that too. People who didn't have insurance now have insurance, and then how things can go terribly wrong when they actually attempt to get care.
I think that's a good point, and we've already seen a few stories here and there of people who they have Obamacare coverage, but it's effectively not coverage because their deductibles are so high that they are still cash medical patients, but they're now cash medical patients for $300 a month when they used to be cash medical patients for free. And it's like, well, wait, what the hell? And Pradeep, you've shared a couple articles about that, but then the other thing is that I saw today, I didn't have a chance to read, was an article, I guess, in Forbes with some ideas that the GOP has of little things that they want to do, like they're starting out with an agenda. This is our first 100 days. We're going to do this, that, and the other. Was that?
Yeah, it was an article by Chris Conover, who works with Ovik Roy on a lot of these health policy issues, and it was an interesting article because, he goes into some policy issues, but it's also about strategy, and his overarching goal was to say, look, if you expect us to try to pass a full repeal mechanism like the way the Democrats passed Obamacare, that's not going to happen, because what's the likelihood we ever get to 60 votes plus the presidency plus all these different cogs working all together? And
plus we just don't act like that. We're not going to push a reconciliation thing against
exactly.
We don't do those tactics.
So he was like, pick specific bad policies within the Affordable Care Act, things that even some liberals don't like, and go and target them. You were talking about rope-a-dope. In a sense, that's the same thing. Like, basically target these things that even some liberals don't like, and then start small. Pick away at, say, the medical device tax, which almost nobody likes. I mean, even Elizabeth Warren, ultra-progressive, doesn't like it. Go after, then, then he was like, first you go after these little things, and then you create a theme. Okay, what's our theme? Our theme is to give people more choice, to have less restrictions, and to try to decrease the cost of care. Okay, and slowly and methodically go after one piece after one piece after one piece. And he was like, well, and also don't do too much at once. Have only one vote every month or two. So that we focus on this one thing, like say the medical device tax. Get public support for it. Get rid of it. Claim success, have a party, and then move on to the next thing. And so that way you get momentum, and you show, look, the things we're trying to do are things that are not going to damage you as newcomers to the healthcare system. These are small things that we're going to get bipartisan support on. That make a lot of common sense, that never should have been in the original Affordable Care Act. And we're going to take it away from the Affordable Care Act. We're not going to increase to the budget debt. By doing these things. We can do it budget neutral, and after all that, your health care is not going to change in the least. And so that was his first, and then he did give specific examples, like deregulation of the exchanges, for example, allowing states to allow more flexible plans, like more health saving account plans, like Cori was talking about. And things like that, which the public actually supports. And these are not things that are going to starve people or leave people to die, but they are going to give people that are stretched thin on paying these bills more choice. And in that respect, conservatives can grow momentum in the public and show that we are being responsible. We don't want people to go without health care, but there is a better way.
Well, and also a real beauty of that, what you're talking about, Pradeep, is that You know, people look at Obamacare as this huge monolith. They don't understand it's a house of cards. If you first take away a few popular things that people want gone, like medical device tax, you're taking away the stuff that funds Obamacare.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
You're right. So if you take some of the least popular and most easy to remove things, if you remove those, the whole thing comes apart, which is just, I almost wish it wouldn't come apart too quickly, because like I said, I'm meaner than all of you people. I want to inflict the most pain I possibly can on the Democrats for doing this to the American people. I'm furious. I want them to feel every bit of pain that they've inflicted on the American people. I almost wish we could stretch it out. But the fact is if we take away a few of these things that people want gone, we'll gut the funding very quickly. And then if we introduce some of the choice elements that you're saying, well, that destroys it on the other side, because now they're choosing, you're not hurting them like cattle anymore. Well, what's left? You've undercut the funding, and you've put choice on top of it.
Yeah, the funding was always like you said, a house of cards. I mean, and you know, so like things. It's amazing at how many pieces of this puzzle are so unpopular, and that basically the public supports the conservative position. You know, you look at the employer mandate, the individual mandate, the medical device tax. These are all things with heavy public majorities, with even many liberals that don't agree with these things, that could easily be chipped away. And once you chip away at those, what's left is basically an exchange system with subsidies that has no way of paying those subsidies.
Exactly.
Right, and also, going off of what you're saying with building momentum, people are going to start to get excited when they are starting to receive these choices, because never before have they been able to actually choose their health care. They're told what they can choose. They're not actually able to choose it. And so if you give them the buying power as a consumer to go out and choose their plan for what they need and what they can afford, Obamacare will become a dinosaur so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I think the big question mark, obviously, to me, is whether Republicans/conservatives are going to take advantage of this. Because to me, this is really an exciting moment. If you get moving on some of these things, which are very popular in the public, you're getting, not only are you creating momentum to get rid of Obamacare, but you're creating you're possibly creating a new three-legged stool of conservatism to get us to 2016. What we've been lacking for the last two presidential cycles is really a cohesive message to middle America. How are Republicans going to help you? Well, now we have the potential of doing that. We've always had the lower taxes, more pro-business part. We've always had, the defense part, which now with Obama flailing on foreign policy, that's building up again. But the third part to me is this healthcare thing, because we can show that, we can provide you with more access to healthcare than Obamacare can do, and we're going to give you more choice. At the same time, defunding the centralization that's been the cause of much of the mess in the first place.
And that's huge. It's amazing, the opportunity. I mean, we talked about this a few weeks ago about putting the GOP, now that they have the House and the Senate, going forward the kind of legislation that we passed to promote our cause and to make us, not the sort of old, cranky, cantankerous bad guys anymore. And this is exactly the kind of thing that does that. We're talking about enabling people to make their own decisions with their own lives, which is huge. And that's a huge thing that wins on all sorts of levels. So this, I think you're absolutely right, Pradheep. I think that this really does have a shot at rejuvenating the image of the GOP going forward, and we have the guys there. I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic, but I think that we have some serious politicians in DC now that are going to get this done. I think that it's hard to say that with the kind of majority that we have in the House and now in the Senate, this is going to happen. It would be ridiculous to imagine that this doesn't happen in the next couple of years. It's a huge win, and it's a huge win for the American people, and we can make that stick. That's
And I think a key is going to be for us to continue to talk about the repeal of bits and pieces of Obamacare, not because we hate Obamacare, but because we have a better solution to provide more choices and better services to the American people. And to provide, to repealing the medical device tax will allow for the evil pharmaceutical companies and the medical inventors to invent things and keep coming up with the genius stuff that keeps us alive. And we want that to happen, so we need to get rid of these punitive taxes and see we're helping people learn that when you tax something, you get less of it, so we want to not tax things because we want more of them. And that's communicating and teaching people by example what conservatism is. And not only are we getting some good conservatives in there and they're good politicians, they also seem to be good at creating a strategy and defining the tactics that support that strategy and sticking with it. And being able to, and they're getting better about communicating in the realm of the liberal media. I think we've grown up enough. We've stopped to just wishing that the liberal media wasn't the liberal media, and we've started focusing on, and by we I mean they, have started focusing on how do I work within this system as it is, and so that's a good thing.
I think going forward from here, what I'm taking away from all of this, to sum it up, so that we can move on to some other fun stuff that we wanted to talk to, I think that what we're looking at is a strategy of piecemeal, I want to say tinkering, but not even that, but piecemeal cobbling of new solutions into the law as it exists.
Improving what we can when we can, I think. Maybe.
Right. And then being able and prepared to make the argument that is not near enough, it's going to take too long, it's not going to be good enough, we're eventually going to have to undo it. And having everyone on our side understand that, but hold fire on that until we've managed to accumulate the political power. And in the meantime, work on sharing narratives and stories and talk about the personal stories of damage that is being done to people in order to help promote those changes that we can be making in the next 2 years, and build that groundswell of support for the idea that Obamacare is, in the final analysis, completely debunked, completely a clunker. It is untenable. There's no way to keep it. So here are new solutions that we're looking at, and after that election in 2016, when 2017 begins, provided that this coalition holds that long and we don't lose any ground, that we can be able to make some serious strides towards repeal at that point.
And will we be at that point experiencing a brighter sunshine and the lessening of the rise of the seas and all of the wonderful things?
Oh no, all that stuff's coming back because so the sea level's going to rise again, and pollution's going to take over the planet, but at least this will be dealt with. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still reeling. That was the that was the Colorado Greek Columns speech, his acceptance speech in 2008, wasn't it?
Was it the acceptance speech where he stopped the rise of the oceans just by holding out his hand?
I think that was it. Does anybody remember? For that long, I have been creeped out by that thought.
Well, and I don't want to, go too much about the whole stupid turkey pardon thing, but what really torqued me off on that turkey pardoning thing was that he made the sign of the cross over the turkey when he was pardoning him. Talk about delusions of grandeur, man. He's not an emperor who is, pardoning the execution. He's not the Pope. That's not the way it works. And he had issued a presidential pardon. We have a president, not a king with a scepter. I think if he could, he would probably have a sword and he would knight people because he thinks that of himself.
But wait, how do you make the sign of a genuflection when you're the deity?
Oh, that
I
was
just had to
great.
throw that out there. Because, I mean, this is what the sea levels will begin to fall. The planet will begin to heal. Who do we think we are? I'm just asking.
It's one of those manifestation things. Somehow the math adds up. I'm sure. The CBO has scored it perfectly. It's fine.
The CBO scored the turkey pardon. Oh my God.
It's been fact checked by WAPO. They have no problems.
Oh, well, WAPO fact checked and we're good, right?
that turkey really was, he was a Christian turkey, and so it was appropriate. It would have been, I mean, how come like the Buddhists and the Hindus and all of that are not offended that Obama made the sign of the cross over the turkey? How do we know what religion that turkey was?
As long as I get to eat the turkey, I'm all good.
You are non-denominational when it comes to turkey consumeration.
Okay, we had the Hindu blessed it, so we're all right
There
then.
you go.
That's our get out of jail free card.
While we're still on this, I just
Wait.
just wanna-
From the chat, we have to give Prairie Dog props. He has coined the term that we've needed. Obama is the hope pope.
Wow.
The hope.
Yeah,
That's
sounds
amazing. While we're on the topic of the whole turkey pardon thing, we really need to have a come on man segment on the refinery. It's got to be a thing that we figure out how to do, because this whole deal with the staffer from Tennessee, I think it is, writing this Facebook post about it's like, really you had to go there, you needed to do that.
Well,
And
I
then
didn't care
everybody
about her
gets
post.
upset.
I mean, she was pointing out bad manners in children in public and saying, hey, they should have better manners. Who cares? She should not have lost her job over that.
She shouldn't have lost her job over it, but she still was not exactly helping her cause. It's not. There's a time and place for everything. I learned this from the Pink Panther movie series. There's a time and place for everything. This is not it, Kato. This is not it. So they're inside voices. Use your inside voice when you want to talk about that stuff. Find some place that's not on Facebook, that's going to be broadcast to everyone, where people are going to take screenshots of it, and it's mind-boggling.
How does it advance our cause to be talking about what the daughters of the president are wearing at a public event that's just sort of a tradition fun thing? I don't see how it helps us. This is the kind of thing that people are, when you're talking about Michelle Obama and her bit about the move, Let's Move campaign, you can talk about the sort of choices that she's making personally versus what she's recommending for students. That makes sense. When you start talking about what she looks like in a pair of pants, that's a different story. I don't think it helps.
Well, you're not in that one, because look, we're the conservative criticizing the liberal. They're untouchable. Now, if we were the liberal criticizing the Palins, it's a totally different story.
I want to build our 2016 campaign completely on personal insults.
Mm-hmm.
No, not one single issue. Not one. Nothing. Just absolutely go personal. Yeah. Even make stuff up. I like
it.
Yeah, it's just, we need to remember, and this is, we just talked about this. We talked about this 2 seconds ago. The liberal media is the liberal media for a reason. We call it the liberal media because it's liberal. Because they're going to find, you don't hand these guys grenades. You don't, please don't hand them ammunition, because they don't really need it. They have enough of it already. They make stuff up already. So
Well, searching out the Facebook post of an obscure staffer of an obscure congressman,
Absolutely.
they're inventing the ammunition. They really are.
Here's the thing. If you have the thought, which I'm sure a lot of people did, that was similar to whatever was expressed, it's okay to think it really loudly if you're, keeping that to yourself. What I think is the key strategic thing is, are you going to do yourself or someone else damage politically for doing that? And if so, you might want to check yourself for a second. This is a person employed by, a member of, the Senate, right? Was that just Senator?
Congressperson, I think. Obscure congressperson.
Yeah, someone from Congress. You were saying an obscure congressman, but we've learned over, there is no such thing when somebody is an offender, quote unquote, against the left or against the left's idols. There's no such thing as an obscure. They will elevate that person to be the person who sat in the chair next to Boehner plotting all this and that and the other, or they will have had, whatever. If you're going to do that kind of a damage to a political figure, you're going to accept that you're going to have to be thrown under the bus and you're going to lose your job over it because you made your boss look bad. That's the story there. Now, again, it doesn't work that way in reverse on the left, but how does anybody think, say, John Gabriel saying that would have had any kind of repercussions like this?
None.
No?
Because that's his job. He's supposed to be a funny guy. He's supposed to. He doesn't have a position of consequence in Washington D.C. Sorry, it's two different jobs, completely different jobs here that we're talking about. And the other thing that really annoyed me about this story was, could you be any more stereotypical? Oh, you're going to call them out about what they're wearing like it's too revealing. Are we really going to be the party of John Lithgow and Footloose still? I mean, is that really what we want to continue on being? You want to continue to perpetuate that meme for another 20 years? I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand why it was profitable, why she thought it was a good idea. And on top of everything else, it's Thanksgiving. Teenagers at Thanksgiving don't like to be at Thanksgiving. It's kind of a thing. I don't know if you've ever had a Thanksgiving party, if you've ever gone. It just, the two things, oil and water, they don't come together very well. Teenagers don't like Thanksgiving. It happens.
I'm just tired of us accepting their premise. I mean, I think there was a way that we could have been, as conservatives, more dismissive of the storm and drang and just said, whatever, somebody says something silly on Facebook, news at 11, let's talk about something different, and not agree with and get, I can't believe she said something about children and who cares about the clothes. I mean, just dismiss it because it's an irrelevance that the other side is trying to pick up on, and they're trying to trap us and get us to agree that Republicans are the party of criticizing people's clothes. I mean, you just bought into it by saying, I can't believe she said it.
Oh, no, because all over my Facebook feed, it was shared dozens of times by people who not only agreed, but were amening like crazy. I do not begrudge them their opinion. The damage that it is doing based on who did it is important. I think that's a distinction that needs to be made.
And it's not just that. It's that this was the faster way to get the story out of the headlines. And I'm not lying about that. If we had continued to sort of poo-poo it, that's more of a incentive for the Daily Show to continue running with it, for the Colbert Report to continue running with it, for all of these guys to continue running with it. That's what they do. They find the points of pressure and they push them. And this thing, the fact that it disappeared as fast as it has, I'm happy with that. I'm glad that it's gone, and we need to remember that this is not an even playing field. I don't know if it's ever going to be close to an even playing field, but it's not right now, and it's not looking like it's going to be an even playing field anytime soon.
Yeah, I just want to stop throwing our own people under the bus. The media is going to do it. The left is going to do it. I don't need to help. So I just ignore that kind of stuff, mostly, other than kind of agreeing that kids today have no manners in general.
Well, you can ignore it, but you're not also called on to defend it.
Right.
But because that's the environment in which you travel. You don't have to. You're not called on to defend it, but
Right.
quite a few people, I'm sure, are.
Yeah, it's a bad situation that there are really no good solutions to. But the faster the end of it, the better, in my opinion. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I really do think that this was a mistake on her part, and it's something that ballooned to hit all of us, to hit the entire conservative movement, because guilt by association, because it fits in with the stereotype, because it hits all of the bases, it checks all of the boxes for the idea of the stodgy old conservative that doesn't like anything and hates children with their rap music and their new clothes that don't cover ankles or whatever.
And you know what? If
really
there are
annoying.
conservatives like that, that's fine. Being conservative means that the government doesn't mandate and force us to be one. It lets us. We are the party of choice. So if there are stodgy people who don't like girls showing their ankles, that's fine. I don't care. I disagree, but I don't care. They can still be conservatives. I don't need to disown them. I don't need to tell them that they're wrong. They can be what they want to be, and I can be what I want to be.
Yes, but hopefully they have the presence of mind to not be a staffer, when a congressional staffer, or somebody who's connected at all to elected politics, when they make their comments about that. If you want to be, Brent Bozell and talk about it, then that's fine. I'm happy with that, but just try not to make the rest of us look bad in the process. And I feel like that's what happened here.
When somebody brings up a comment like that, I simply say, I put it in perspective quickly and then make a quick comparison to the left and move on. Just say, yeah, I disagree. Yeah, obviously that was stupid. I disagree with that. But she, let's see, what could I use? Okay, but she was not an architect for Obamacare, whose comments were actually, were actually to lie to all of us because we are stupid, so that we would buy into a plan that we could not afford. A little bit, let's keep it in perspective. Do I disagree with her? Yeah. Did she cause any damage in my life? No. Did he? Yeah.
There you go. See, that's the way to do it. I like it. I like it. And even though whether you disagree with her or not, that's putting yourself into the story, and I don't know that that's necessary either. It's like, oh, she said, I think it was kind of silly. I think it was kind of stupid that she said it, and I'm sure she regrets having said it too. However, what she said to her 5 friends on Facebook is nowhere near as damaging to the American economy and to the health of the nation as what Gruber said, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, your lead-in is even better. I like that.
I think that's a good point to bring up Arthur Brooks, actually.
Oh, and you get there. Ooh, I like it. Segue. I'm becoming a fangirl of Arthur Brooks. He's the head of the American Enterprise Institute. He's made some really fabulous videos and came out with an article this week that was on New York Times, and it was The Trick to Being More Virtuous. And I really love the fact that conservatives and libertarians are starting to talk more about morality and virtue and bringing that into public discussions, because conservatism is far more than just a political party or politics or anything that has to do with the laws that govern our society. Conservatism is it's a way of life. It's who you are. And Arthur Brooks relates the story of having been in Utah delivering a lecture at Brigham Young University, and one of the things that the Mormons did was they gave him lots of logoed merchandise for BYU, and he was walking around with a briefcase with the BYU logo on it. And what he noticed was, absolutely unconsciously, when he was carrying that, he was aware, he was on a subconscious level aware that he was representing the Mormon way of life in some way, because he was advertising BYU. He behaved better. He was nicer. He smiled more. He even went so far as being aware of when he was walking around with a coffee cup along with that BYU briefcase, because Mormons don't drink coffee. And he then kind of realized that that this Mormon briefcase and what it meant to him had an effect of moral elevation on him. And then he also noticed that it affected other people around him. And the phenomenon of moral elevation is such that the way you behave and what you reflect out onto society, other people will reflect back to you. And if you stand up straight and you look at strangers in the eye, make eye contact and smile with strangers, they're going to smile back, and they're going to carry that happiness for another 15 seconds. Or you are seen visibly putting up a couple of, not only your own grocery cart at Kroger, but somebody else's grocery cart. Somebody else is going to see you do that, and maybe 3 days later, they'll be in a position that they can put away a couple of grocery carts. They're going to do so. And you're sort of spreading this moral elevation of kindness and generosity of spirit like a virus throughout the world. And that's something that I don't know that we think about doing consciously as often as we possibly should. And I loved the fact that this article was out there and kind of gave it a name of moral elevation. So now we can all kind of look at it and come up with more examples of doing that and be more conscious of spreading conservatism, not by talking politics, but by our actions of just being happy, good, decent people. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're mentioning that there was a series of commercials, wasn't it? Where you see one person picking up a piece of garbage and then somebody else saw them, and then you see them picking up a piece of garbage, and it was a whole. Who was that commercial for?
Foundation for a better life. Is that it?
I don't know. Obviously, I didn't want to buy their product. I just thought the commercial was cool. But you guys know what I'm talking about, where it's spread the good things.
They're not selling a product. Foundation for a Better Life is basically just selling. It's an organization selling morality. It's very well financed, and they're selling how to treat people well. A lot of Democrats became very upset because it's run by a Republican, but
evil.
It's completely non-political. In the way it's constructed. One thing that we can always do is simply say, we have one huge advantage. Conservatism is natural, liberalism is unnatural. Liberalism is only natural to the sinful part of us, the self-seeking part of us, however you want to define that. And conservatism is natural, so I simply look at people and say, look, I want my government to run the same way you run your household. Okay? If you have two kids and one of them behaves well and the other behaves poorly, you don't punish the one who behaved well and reward the one who behaved poorly. You don't even out outcomes. If one works hard and the other one does not, you do not the less work and take from the one who worked hard and reward the less work. In all of our lives, the way we treat our families, the way we treat things naturally, is the exact opposite of how our government is hurting us, of how our government is, to put it this way, parenting us as a people. I simply want our government to be like you are with your family.
I like that. And in this article by Arthur Brooks, he focused on, after telling his story of his briefcase, he talked about, bringing a bit more civility to our political culture. But what he said before going into that was, we can be the passive beneficiaries of moral elevation, which he was, by having, that briefcase elevated him morally. But we can actively pursue it as well by rejecting bad influences and seeking good ones. And that's what we do in our private lives, and we can, and that's what we want our children to do. Don't we all understand when you're raising your children, encourage them to have good friends rather than bad friends, and have friends that will elevate them, and that they can then elevate their friends. And we then somehow forget that when we grow up, and we hang out with the bad crowd of people who are amoral, and we excuse that. We need to remember the things that we teach our children about you are who your friends are, and you need to behave properly and mind your manners and treat people decently. We need to do that our whole lives, because that then makes, not only does it make ourselves happier and better, it makes other people step up to our level. Why would I sink down to their level of a lack of civility and lack of manners and lack of respect? I'm going to behave in such a way that they will rise up to my level, kind of thing, is what I'm looking at. And we're seeing examples of that in Ferguson. There have actually been a couple of examples. The Natalie DuRose, the cakes lady. You guys know more about that than I do. Natalie, what's her face in Ferguson that made the cakes, and there was the GoFundMe. Natalie DuBose. And there was the GoFundMe, and she's made tons of money, and she's getting a lot of press. And what Felicia was telling me earlier is that because Natalie has done well enough on this thing that she's going to rebuild her own, she is sharing with the other residents and business people of Ferguson, and she's spreading the mentality and the spirit of rebuild and do good things and be a positive influence on each other. And that's moral elevation, and that's the kind of thing that goes beyond party politics. It goes beyond race. It goes beyond so many things into the kind of society we want to live in. And if we focus on those good things and we expand those, you get more of what you pay attention to. So we pay attention to and expand those morally elevating things, and it steal attention from the negative, ugly people, and give attention to the positive, happy people.
One of the things about I have to say one political thing about her story, though, just because it highlighted something that I just love about the right. We're not perfect, folks. We're not perfect, but it's something I really love, and that's this. While the left constantly picks and chooses winners and losers, the right does not care nearly as much what your party is, where you come from. They care about your character. This woman's she's a Democrat. Okay, but what swept people up and got so many people on the right donating to her. That's where most of her donations, I do believe, came from, because they advertised for it on Rush and things like this. What swept people up is the story of how she began her cake shop and the risks she took, and how she started out just making these pastries and selling them at flea markets and so forth, saved up enough, and then took the risk of putting together this cake shop, and then was just getting it going, and then this terrible thing happened. That's what swept people up, was the incredibly conservative beginning of what she did, and nobody cared what she looked like, what her party was. We don't care. On the right, we care about you, the individual, not your labels. On the left, they look at your labels, and that's where they decide if they're going to help or not help so often. And let me tell you, as a former leftist, that really is true. I'm really proud of where I am now.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And there was another video out of Ferguson of a young man who had been the commander of his ROTC unit in high school, and showed his picture of that. But he just started going around the Ferguson neighborhood and picking up trash. And it made him feel good about what he was doing for his community. And he even commented in that little video that other people started picking up trash with him. That's an example of what Arthur Brooks was talking about. He started doing something good, and it elevated himself morally, and it spread moral elevation to some other random passerby, because it made that other random passerby decide, oh, I can pick up garbage too. So he's spreading this thing like a virus, and it's awesome, and we need more of that.
It's not guilt. It's not that it wasn't guilt that was motivating the other person. It was the desire to do good, and I think that's very well ingrained in everyone, and this is some good proof of that.
Well, we were kind of shocked and a little bit amused even yesterday. We were watching some of the footage of that convenience store that got looted. You know, the one where Michael Brown walked in and stole the cigars. And the one guy was trying to light the place on fire, and he was spreading, what is that? Accelerant all over the store and trying to get this fire started.
And doing a terrible job.
Yeah, doing a really bad job.
Incredibly bad. I mean, he reminded me of old film of the frustrated father trying to get the grill going.
Yes, it was.
But anyway, go ahead.
Well,
He needs to go back to disruptive protesting school.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. He failed badly. But anyway, and then a couple minutes later, he's got this fire going, and so he walks away and he continues to loot. And then this girl walks over, and she's got a gallon of milk in her hands.
She's one of the looters.
She's one of the looters, and she's there pouring the milk over the accelerant and over this fire to put it out. And so it goes out, and it's steaming still. So that's not good enough. She goes back and gets another gallon of milk and continues to pour it to make sure it's completely out.
So right in the middle of looting, you have a looter who gets gripped by conscience and rescues a store.
I was so shocked.
That's just, I mean, it's hysterical, it's sad, it's awesome, it's all of those things.
So it was kind of the power of the crowd caused her to be a looter like everybody else, but then when she was slightly away from the crowd and could operate under her own conscience a little bit, or just not as surrounded by the crowd, she was able to slow down enough and think enough and say, oh my God, this thing's on fire, that's probably a bad idea, I will put the fire out.
Well, it's like she was okay with looting, but not with arson, so she had limits.
Well, and she also, by the way, you're right, she had stepped aside from the crowd and gone back, and when she was pouring that on there, she was pretty much the only one there then. What this always tells me is this: don't tell me that you are controlled by those around you, that they are defining you and telling you what you have to become. When even in the midst of looting, in the midst of the looting of the Ferguson riots, a looter can get gripped by conscience and save a store.
I don't want to pour milk all over your accelerant-laden fire here, but a store that burns down can't be further looted. I'm just saying.
Such a cynic. Such a cynic. I knew it was going to be brought up. I knew it was going there. I had a feeling.
Oh, Fishy, what would we do without you?
Y'all people is all going to burn in hell. Y'all's going to all burn in hell.
It is very difficult to loot a store while the store is on fire. Yes, Fishy, you do have a very good point there.
So it was just economic conservatism on her part. She was trying to preserve.
I was saying that
Clearly.
earlier. Okay. Intelligent economic decisions all the time. I'm sorry, I had to say it.
She didn't grab anything afterward. Okay, she just poured the milk and took off. You are so mean.
Okay, we now have an understanding of who the optimists and who the pessimists are in this little happy crowd, don't we? And Felicia, you're on the glass half full, half empty side of things.
I'm in the drinking out of a solo cup because all the glasses are broken, pessimist.
See, I told you.
So sad.
She takes our glass, Leslie, and she smashes it.
So sad. So she's an anarchist.
You know who's happy? You know who's happy right now? You know who's happy right now? Paul Krugman. He's happy. Congratulations, Fishy. You made Paul Krugman happy. You have to deal with that on your conscience for the rest of your life. Somewhere in Princeton, Paul Krugman is stroking his cat and smiling because of you. Very nice.
God, that's depressing.
Yes, it is very depressing.
I want to get back to the story of Terrence now that we've dispensed with the looters and their odd behavior. Okay, but the great thing about this video about Terrence, in the guy that was picking up trash in Ferguson and just going out to help, he said things that were really interesting. I want to be a good role model. I want to promote the good parts of this community and show people that Ferguson is a community that has people in it that are positive and loving and good and giving. And then at the end he said he'd been applying for a position with the police department. This is a guy post-riot, post-judgment, who has gotten accepted to the next step and is going forward with his ambition to become a police officer in that environment.
The last few seconds of that video just gave me goosebumps because you could see his joy in receiving whatever that the letter was that he had passed a step and was moving on to his next step to becoming a police officer. That was just awesome. He's a
pessimism.
23-year-old young man.
Pessimism. Yeah. What?
Yeah, you're a softie. You're a softie. What a bastard covered bastard with cream filling? Is that the way it went from Scrubs?
It doesn't.
No, it's bastard covered bastard with bastard filling. Is that what it is? Oh heck, I don't remember. Y'all remember Scrubs?
I was a House fan. I didn't have time for Scrubs.
By the way, I just need to. I need to point this out from the chat because it's too excellent to ignore. Back to the looter. She could have been thinking about the effect that fire could have on the global climate, so she put out the fire. Global warming awareness saved the store.
Hey, whatever works.
Rob in the chat.
No, that's big. I mean, so she not only saved a store, but our planet. We are all alive because of her. I'm forming a religion around her.
But did the seas recede? The sea levels recede.
Hey, firefighter lady with the stolen milk, thanks for saving the planet.
Oh boy.
Well, we haven't had massive floods in Colorado this year, so hey, that's something.
At least not since the looting.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty dry ever since then.
That's not a coincidence, I don't think.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay, one of the other good stories about Ferguson, we're going to stop talking about the milk lady here in a moment. One of the other good stories about Ferguson was that there were some black residents standing there. There's a picture of black Ferguson residents with their arms crossed, and they're large and they're imposing, and they're standing in front of a business protecting the white-owned business that had employed them, and they were protecting it from looters. And it's those kinds of things that happened in Ferguson, and we need to spread those stories more than spreading the stories of the bad stuff that happens, because in the midst of a massive crowd doing bad things and where it's easy to just fall in with the crowd and do bad things, there were those who stood outside and protected a guy who had provided them jobs and saved his business. There was the guy who was standing out front of a I don't even remember the name of the store, but we saw after hours he was standing out front of a store and preventing 2 or 3 other people at great risk to himself, preventing others from looting that one store. And he had no connection to the store. I think it was a Papa John's, protecting Papa John's. Remember that one? There were just enough good stories that we need to really focus more on and elevate those stories.
To be fair, there are a few things worth fighting for more than Papa John's.
True.
So
good pizza.
Oh my!
It is no such thing. It is not even close to good pizza. Now I'm sorry, because now we won't be getting the Papa John sponsorship for the refinery anytime soon. Sorry about that.
The Italian tanks us. The Italian tanks us completely.
New York.
Okay, I want you to prepare some clips here. Papa John's is really good pizza. I enjoy Papa John's pizza. Pizza Hut is really good pizza. I enjoy Pizza Hut pizza. Please feel free to clip these and send them to future sponsors of your choice.
You're going to have the Italian do the editing on that? That ain't gonna go well.
I'm pretty sure that you just committed a hate crime against me.
Microaggression.
Yeah, probably.
My triggers, you've triggered me. I need some time to get a hold of myself to
JD's going to take to his fainting couch now. I pushed him
Yes.
over his limit. Yeah.
Precisely.
Okay, so Little Caesars.
You're digging a hole, Leslie. You want to pass that shovel over to me so you can climb out?
Yeah. Okay, I stopped digging. I don't even eat pizza. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
Now, all this reminds me, too, of Ryan's community, Human Excellence, on Google Plus, too, because some of the things that he's been trying to achieve with that that community of talking about the cultural places that people come together, this is the sort of stuff that fits right in there. And you could talk about national issues from the framing of how people have behaved in this kind of, desperate situation and the difficult circumstances they find themselves in. Part of the beauty of being human is the ability to rise above, your instincts or your anger or your frustration. And this is the sort of thing you're seeing coming out of Ferguson. A lot of great stories about that, where it really does elevate us back to that moral elevation. It does elevate us, and that's why finding communities like Ryan's, and we're hoping everybody that's been watching will go check that out on Google Plus, because we all do need that. We do tend to sometimes focus on the outrage of the day, or the political thing that just makes us all crazy, and we all have to make sure that everybody we know knows all the bad things that have happened. But it's so nice to be able to take a moment and focus on some good things, and looking at people doing something good and feeling elevated ourselves and spreading that around. That is so important, as Leslie was saying, to explaining and living a life that is conservative.
Well, largely, we're trying to grow the conservative movement, meaning we want people to join us. We want people to want to hang out with us. We want to be liked. We want to be more popular, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't grow a movement by being unpopular. And people want to hang out with happy, uplifting, positive people. You're more fun to be around. And the nice thing is, it really is a conservative value to find the good in people and to elevate that. And people want to be around that. They'll just gravitate towards the happy, positive people in your life. And because they make you feel happy and positive as well. And so for conservatives, and it's easier now because we are winning politically. So it's easier for us to be positive and happy. But we need to consciously do that and realize that what we're doing is growing a movement by being the kind of people everybody wants to be around. Being the cool kids. Not the cool, snarky, above it all kids, but being the good people. Come hang out with us. Come be with us, because we're happy and positive and fun and nice and caring.
It reminds me of some of my rules for life. One of them is just don't be an ass.
Yeah.
How hard is that? And so often on the internet, it's so impersonal. It's so easy to do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm not saying that I don't violate that rule a bunch of times. I really do. But I'm working on it and I'm conscious of it. And that's the thing. I can tell from where I started on Facebook back in 2008 to now, I have a different tone online. I do. Because I think of those things now that I didn't before.
We do all need to vent, and we have vent to your private communities. But have your public face, if you're going to be a politically conservative public representative of the movement, trying to grow the movement and having this purpose, try to be a positive representative of that, so that people will say, oh, this is what a conservative is like. And so be publicly a bit more positive. Not blind to the problems, the errors, and the dangers around. I mean, we're not naive or stupid. We're just positive and constructive about it.
So does it make me look shallow, mean, and evil when I look at
Yes.
how?
Whatever it is, yes.
Okay, good.
Love you, Andy.
I was interested in what you were looking at.
Oh, I was too, but we were just answering.
No, when I'm looking at all these protests and see, you know, guys, I always think strategically. It's all I wake up thinking strategy. I go to bed thinking strategy. It's all I ever think is strategic.
Poor
And
Cori.
yeah, I know it's awful for her, but she just every time I wake up, she looks at me calmly and says, "I've already won." So that I don't have to worry about that. No, when I look at the protests, and when I look at the Rams holding their hands up, and I look at all this kind of stuff, and my article that's going to be coming out in a day or two, it discusses this. I delight in the fact that they are driving people to our side. And they are. You see, I'm from Wisconsin, and I think about the Scott Walker recall campaign, and it was going poorly until the teachers' unions went out and protested. And all the parents across Wisconsin saw these people, these mobs, screaming, shouting like animals, just rampaging and fury and rage and all this. And they were just like, oh my gosh, we knew they were a union, but we never thought they were one of those kind of. I mean, this is what's been educating our kids, and really, they were shocked. And when that visual went out, Walker shot back up in the polls and won, and hasn't lost since. What's going on in St. Louis and Ferguson? People are thinking these are black people run amok. No, it isn't. It's liberals run amok. First of all, a number of them are not black, and secondly, there are no conservatives there. There are no black conservatives. As part of these protests. This is all liberals run amok doing bad things, lots of really bad things, and insulting an entire city by holding their hands up, when they're about to play a football game, and infuriating the cops. This is the kind of thing people are going to, let me tell you, people won't talk about it, they won't mention it in a poll, but it angers them and it makes them even more wanting to vote against that side. It really does.
Here's what I need to make a distinction about, and I know that you would agree with me when I make this distinction. I don't like that politics is divisive and nasty and that people are mean and ugly to each other. I don't like it. I understand that that's the ground that there is, and I would prefer it if people didn't behave in ways like you were detailing that the Wisconsin union, teachers' unions were behaving. But I can look at the fact that they are and figure ways to take advantage of that while still wishing it had never happened. And I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying, yeah, you're not, and I don't know that anybody would even make this connection, but I had to say it. You're not saying, oh, I'm hoping that liberals act like liberals in this way over and over again so that they drive people to us. It's more an acceptance of the reality and taking advantage of that, even while feeling, isn't it awful that this is how they are?
Oh, absolutely. No, everything you just said is exactly dead on. I don't look forward to them doing that. But if they're going to do that, if they're going to expose how ruthless they are, if they're going to expose how horrible they can be and how little they care about right and wrong. Forget the protests. Look at the fact that they don't care about any of the facts of the case. Okay, these people, this entire side doesn't care about any of the facts of the case whatsoever. It means absolutely nothing to them, and they want to design your health care for you. Okay, they don't care about any of the facts of the case. They don't care about any of what happened to this. They don't care about this police officer having to quit a job after being innocent and doing the right thing, and they run the EPA, and they run the NEA, and look,
you don't trust them on these things. Why would you trust them on this other thing? And that brings us back to, was it Kurt that said, why should we trust anything liberals say about anything?
Well, yeah, they're one big Gruber. What they're doing is you're seeing an entire movement expose itself publicly, just like he did privately, and show this is what we think of you. We didn't get our way. Who can, would the Attorney General be prompting a further investigation if he had gotten the outcome that he desired? Of course not.
Would the president be meeting with somebody like Al Sharpton as a representative of the whatever the black community? I guess Al Sharpton is now the spokesperson, the spokesmodel for blacks or something. I mean, I don't know that they elected him, but he elected himself. And I mean, this is a guy who, does anybody remember Tawana Bradley? And Sharpton never apologized for destroying that the non-rapist's career. And also, oh, by the way, Al Sharpton is an employee of a news channel, but he's also considered some political influence. If this was a Republican president and, Bill O'Reilly was considered a leader of white people, I mean, would that ever happen? No. But somehow I think people are starting to see some of the insanity that is going on as the civil rights movement refuses to accept that they've won, and we don't have lynchings anymore, so you can now dissolve your company and go do something productive with society now. Thank you.
Well, I don't think it takes a Glenn Beck, drawing 27 lines on a chalkboard between all these squares and circles, which, by the way, I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't take him connecting all these dots for us to simply see this. You have a president who promised we'd save $2,500 on average per family, who promised if you like your plan, you can keep it.
If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
It's going to decrease our deficit.
Yeah, you have a president who blatantly lied. You have the architect of his plan privately admitting multiple times that they lied as a strategy. And then you have all of the left rallying around Ferguson, demanding that the truth of the case be swept aside. The coincidence? Oh, come on.
Well, and they keep saying they want justice, but
well, they don't.
They don't, because justice is actually what happened. The system of justice calls for a grand jury to investigate. They did, and they chose not to charge Darren Wilson. That actually is literally justice.
Yeah, well, anyway, to sum up, no, I'm not happy that they did what they did. But would I take advantage of it? Absolutely. I'm not happy that Obamacare has been put into place. But do I want to bleed them piece by piece by piece by piece, picking it apart, one by one, showing how this hurts people, the medical device tax, that hurts people, and so forth? Yes, I do. And, I think I'm the only one here who's a former leftist, Marxist, and all that. So I guess maybe this is a little bit of the ruthlessness of the left still in me. But
I'm from New Jersey, if that helps.
It does. I mean, I'm not happy that they do it. I'm never happy when people do terrible things, but I'm sure as heck going to take advantage of it to show that they're doing terrible things and expose that.
Well, and I have one in case in point that I just found now. The Democrat National Committee is selling I Hate Tea Party merchandise.
Nice.
Isn't that great?
What is this, 2009?
Thank you.
Remember at the 2012 DNC, National DNC Convention, to re-elect Barack Obama, they were circulating buttons that said, once you vote black, you never go back. These people are repulsive. Oh yeah, they were. I saw the pictures of them all over. They're repulsive. They are repulsive. And I'm sorry, that's where I come from, and I just shake every time I see that stuff.
Well, I tend to think that, like in the case of the Scott Walker protests, when the union teachers were being so nasty, mean, and ugly, that the best counter to that is not our guys fighting back and yelling back at them, but our guys being calm and kind and nice and showing a complete contrast. Because what happens when somebody's sputtering anger at you and you refuse to be angry back, you're denying them the fight that they're spoiling for, and they end up just getting absolutely rabid. Is that, and that's just what I think works, but I don't know if that works on a political level, or do we need to be more fighting back?
Oh, you're dead right, but we have to. The times when you have to fight back and do more than Mitt Romney in the first debate, not in the second and third, is when people aren't seeing what the left has done, and you have to take the steps to expose it. Now, in the case of the Wisconsin, look, Walker was going to lose. He was running he was going to lose the recall. He was done. When those pictures, and you should have seen some of the pictures of these ladies and these guys and these, these teachers, it was horrible. And when that came out, it all changed. So if they want to fall on their sword, I say let them. But if nobody's going to see them falling on their sword or see what they're doing, you had better be brave, strong, and bold, and you'd better find your inner Ted Cruz. And you'd better let that Ted Cruz out. Because if we don't have straight shooters on the right willing to expose the left and do it hard, then we're in a lot of trouble. Who's that guy who's so great, who does all the questioning on Capitol Hill, that Republican congressman?
Oh, Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy, yeah. You got to have a Trey Gowdy, and there's a little Trey Gowdy in every one of us. Just like there's a little Paul Ryan handling the numbers.
Okay, so I'm thinking.
Quick caveat on the Trey Gowdy thing. And to the same effect, the Ted Cruz thing. When you are letting your little Trey Gowdy and your little Ted Cruz out, remember that Trey Gowdy and Ted Cruz are both highly trained lawyers.
Yes.
They are highly trained lawyers who know what they're doing before they say stuff.
Right. What works for Trey Gowdy and Kurt Schlichter and Ted Cruz does not work for you and me on Twitter, because we're just not that good. Yeah.
Think about it. Just think about that a little bit before going forward.
Good point. But I think what you're saying is when the other side is not beclowning themselves, then we have to fight back. Like, Mitt Romney needing to fight back in the debate because Obama wasn't sputtering with rage. But had Obama been sputtering with rage, then it would have been right for Mitt Romney to sit back and just let him show himself to be the rage sputterer that he was, although he's not.
Exactly. In fact, if he had piled on, it would look bad at that point.
Okay, so whether we fight back or stand by and be the nice guy kind of depends on what the other guy is doing, which makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
Make sure they're exposed. If they do it themselves, you don't have to help. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's tactics. Knowing what your enemy is doing and developing a plan around a particular move. That's exactly right.
Situational awareness. It's something that we talk about a lot, and it's something that you need to be aware of, because otherwise you're going to be saying the wrong things at the wrong time, and it's going to end up a mess.
Right. The right approach, given your audience, what people are aware of, what they're looking for, what's going to benefit them, those kinds of things.
Right. What is going to make you and your team look good at any one time is not going to be the same thing that's going to make you and your team look good at another time. So the fact that somebody always comes out punching is probably not always a good strategy. Maybe that somebody always starts, from a calm and reasonable perspective. On some issues, that's going to get them accused of not having any feelings about it. So just taking the idea into one's hands, you can have a particular favored tactic that you use, but definitely being aware of whatever it is that is going to help you and your team look good and do your best at a particular time is what you use. You don't use a hammer when you're going to screw a screw in. You don't use a pliers when you're trying to pry something open.
I was really afraid you were going to go with a sports analogy on that one, and I'm so glad you didn't.
Sometimes you use a pliers to open to pry something open. Just stipulation.
I use a hammer for everything I use a hammer for everything, just so you know, even for writing. So, you know, I mean, it's
This
poor
is why the
keyboard.
blog post takes so long. Okay.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
keyboard budget at that household has got to be extreme.
it's horrible. But, you know, really, I guess what we got to keep in mind is JD doesn't trust any of us to go forth and, you know, criticize people. Do you guys realize that this entire night, everything I've said, JD typed to me ahead of time, the whole time? And it's just, you know, I'm starting to feel, I can't take it anymore, JD, and now I'm just out with it.
So JD is your Cyrano, is what you're saying? Gotcha.
Yes, I'm feeling programmed. I'm feeling boxed in.
Yeah, it's less a Cyrano thing, more of a Big Brother thing.
I think he really just wanted to give Cori a break for the night.
That's true. She had a headache earlier in the day. Hopefully, it's gone away. So.
And
I think we've established that if JD wants pizza, he's not going to ask me to give him to come up with the pizza solution for him.
I'd sooner make the pizza myself.
Good. When should I be over? I like pizza.
It's a long drive to New Jersey.
Yeah, true.
Road trip.
True. That's north of Texas, so no thanks.
It's not only north of Texas, it's not Texas.
It's not Texas, exactly. It's not Texas.
He lives in not Texas.
Anyway, you guys, if I can just kind of end the Ferguson thing on a high note for us, it is going to work. Ferguson is going to be wonderful for our side. And I hate to say that. I hate the tragedy that's happened. I hate a lot of what they've done. I'm only talking about the protest element of it. Okay, just the protest element. It's going to be great. Okay, Missouri will have probably a Republican governor after this. People see that, and they get furious. They are furious with nationwide leftists looking away from the evidence. See, these discussions are happening at the office. These discussions are happening at church, in communities, where people bring up the case, and a leftist will constantly try to find ways to rationalize that maybe his hands were up, or somehow it's a conspiracy and we haven't really heard all the evidence and the autopsies are wrong and this kind of stuff. They're going to do that, and it really, really, really hurts their side. This is going to bleed them all over, politically, all over the country, because there are leftists all over the country rationalizing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it is terrible for them. It really is. It's Wisconsin nationwide.
Yeah, and people really don't like it when people clog up major arteries during Thanksgiving, when they're trying to get to airports, when they're trying to get to places, leave their towns, and have a bunch of hipsters in their, you know, and their signs, and they're protesting. People don't care what they're protesting over. They know that they're being blocked from where they want to go. So
and then they find out the truth, and we're getting better at letting the truth come out and elevating the truth and echoing the truth and making sure that comes out, rather than being so radical and reactionary on our own part. I think we're doing a better job on the conservative side of letting the truth tell its own story and letting the public learn and see. I don't know if the public is listening to us more, or if we're telling better stories, but the Ferguson situation is redounding to our benefit because the truth is so stark, and the general public, the apolitical public, is, I think, hearing about it in a way that we're able to communicate and explain, and people are seeing that it is the liberals that are trying to capitalize on it for their own benefit, and it's they're making themselves look bad, and we're standing back and allowing it to happen, I guess.
Well, we see a tragedy, and for some sick reason, they actually see an opportunity in this. I don't know why,
that's
because
so bizarre. That's so just evil or morally bankrupt.
I know, because here they see. You notice that I'm happy that they're imploding, but we're not doing anything. We're not actually going in and making it happen. Okay.
Mm-mm.
They actually send people in to try to make it happen and take advantage of this. I'm only sitting back and enjoying their implosion. Well, why wouldn't I? They do bad things to people. Yes, I want them to implode. Okay, I mean, but it's really crazy. We haven't done a thing.
That's true. That's true. And with that, I think we need to bring this episode to a close. Am I right, gang?
I think.
Right?
Before we do that, though, before we close, I just want to remind everyone the video that you got to see at the top of the show, Ryan telling his Obamacare story, his insurance story. We are looking for more people who want to talk about their own situations, what they've done, what they've had to deal with when it comes to Obamacare and how it's affected them, how it's affected their lives, and what has changed for them, what they have to deal with now, how much more they have to pay, how much care they've lost, losing their doctors, all of that stuff. We want to hear about that, and we want to help anyone who wants to do a video on this, do a video on it. We'll set up a Google Hangout. We'll help edit. We'll edit the whole thing if you want. But we want to get more of these videos out there. You can post it to your own channel. We could post it here on the Conservative Union's channel. We just need to get these stories out there. We've talked to a bunch of people already. We had a large response to Ryan's video today. Just the sheer number of comments and people talking about it has been bigger than pretty much anything that we've ever had. So it's an important issue, and it's something that we really want to get done. We want to continue this project, and we want to get more voices out there. We want to hear more of you talking about how this bill, how this program has hurt you and your loved ones, because that's what it does. That's what it's designed to do.
And as far as getting in touch with us, there are, use whatever method is most convenient for you. Commenting on a YouTube video, the Contact Us page on the website, Google+, Twitter, Facebook. There are whatever contact method works for you. We will get back with you, and we will coordinate this stuff. So definitely want to hear those insurance stories. Anybody else have anything to add? Nope.
Just that you should listen to the show in addition to Tuesday nights at 9:30-ish to listen to the show in podcast form on Vigilant Liberty Radio. Yes,
and there's a link to the Spreaker player that on the website, and also a link to Vigilant Liberty website. You can subscribe to all of their shows or just ours or the other ones, but if you listen to the other ones, you better listen to ours first too, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're at 102 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We need more.
We crossed 100 today, and that's a big deal, and we're happy about that. Hooray!
Like, share, subscribe, favorite, spread the love,
send money. Oh wait, was I not supposed to say that out loud? Dang it. My editor is just off. Anyway, thank you guys, everybody. We will see you next week, next Tuesday, 8:30-ish Central at therefineryshow.com. Thank you. Goodbye. Everybody wave. I'm waving. Bye.